Thank you very much for joining me, Polina. Just sprucing you up for 2021. A few notes about that are in a collective reading also, about what is the numerical system, why should we not maybe bother with this. But, if you've come out to be a great believer that the year begins in 2021, it's okay. It's okay. So let's talk a little bit about you now. So I'd like to continue the momentum you have from December 2020. At this point, you might not be quite aware or quite in tune as to how things work, but inside you, you know. So there's a new type of system in place. Maybe there's a new type of value that you hold. Maybe there is a new type of person that you are connected to. Maybe there's a new type of energy center, or there's a new type of self-connection that you have, and this creates a certain type of effortless system by which things work. So there's a new kind of mathematical sequence and order, or there's a new organizational sequence. Now, the way that I see you right now is that you might not want to feel what you're feeling, or you pretend you know it all with your mind. And if you're one of those people that really likes to think it and not feel it, please understand that this is debilitating you. Also, please refer, if you are on my Patreon, to the Virgo video for January 2021, because this really illustrates how the mind can be key in self-control, and that is not going to help you during this year. So Ox, although it is robust, although it is hardworking, although it is very picture perfect, and it could be a big picture maker for you and many other people you might know, I trust that this is not quite the time to have a big state of control over all of it. So the way that you are doing things has got to be a little bit less deliberate and more hospitable to life, making her moves as she would. And it also feels to me that not many of us know this, but there are no purposes, there are no set rules or regularity in the world of the living, At this state that we're in, we have to embrace that more luscious softness of the psychedelia of the world, the psychedelic energy, the psychedelic relationship between things, and also the softness between all matter through space and time. And I talk a little bit about how there is no matter at all actually in 2021 video, collective video, and we are going to all start to see that. But because we're in the robust sign of Ox during this particular year, I think a lot of us really need that feeling of accomplishment, that feeling of the backbone, the bringing back, or the bringing to, the coming together, the forming, the formulation, the formulation. We respect that about ourselves and each other, and we really want to know that as being the overall. And it also feels to me that Virgo, much too much of this makes you perhaps feel glad or sick or emotional, where you shouldn't feel these feelings, and why sometimes we have toxicity or sadness or strangeness or strongness within character, or we're building ourselves into a very neurotic or very epic being. And what for do we have all these energies and all this evolution also happening at the same time? Is because we're actually trying to walk out of it and walk more into a relaxed state in which we just afford a purity and a bliss without really having to plug into anything or anybody, and without having to be also a plug-in. So the feeling that I'm getting is that it's more a connection between the heart and the brain that is going to have to be evolved here, and also outside of you there's going to be a lot of work done and a lot of shift happen based on the mainstream proposition for what this reality has got to be. So although you have now maybe no choice in which you do and do not participate, I think there are also greater and more epic, gallant and gorgeous choices coming to you, should you just release these strings and release also these thought patterns that are becoming a hereditary blueprint, or are starting to make your life into what it is. And I also trust that not for many, but for some Virgos, there might be a time that has already come, for those very intuitive ones, that may drive you without you pushing a button anymore. It's not about you pushing that button. Now it's more about just time, like driving you, and also other people, other forces, other equivalents to you, other equal people, the collateral fragments, doing that thing that you were gonna do. So also release the tension. Somebody else has that experience now. Someone else is now important in the story. There are no nonsense realities connected to you though at the same time. So though there's other people potentially, or like other aspects controlling that which is not controllable for you anymore, or trying to do the job that you were doing before, I think there are still things to be accountable for, and there's still journeys that you have to play safe and do by. So the main thing that I'm kind of like feeling for you is not to work at all, and if you can afford it, make as much time as likely possible to have free, and also to get out of this negative experience of wishing to negotiate your time and wishing to sell that which you hold. So the main thing that I'm kind of like feeling for you guys is that nobody's really that just, nobody's really right with you. I'm feeling like nothing here is really that strong. It's just more that ability that you had earlier to connect the dots, or the ability that you had to work things out or work hard or do you, however you did you, is starting to get muffled and lost. And there's some of us that get very, very expressive when we are losing ourselves, or we're losing the previous wheels on which we were driving. So it feels to me that the previous sense of self-respect and the previous sense of obviousness to yourself is starting to wash out or come out of yourself, and there's going to be a new neurologically superior version or structure of you, and it's actually a very grand structure of you that is coming through by the end of 2021. It's just important to be aware and peace that you might need to lose a lot of your inner sentimentality, a lot of your inner feelings, a lot of what you perceive, a lot of what you think you would like or would do, simply out of reason. And the reason is very simple. The reason is that you have to ascend and release much of that which you thought you were a part of, or which you thought you represented, and all those thoughts and feelings that you have about any subject, any person, God, creation, love, life, energy, people, anything might change. So it has to be made clear to you, perhaps already by the end of 2020, as here's where we are, that there is no purpose anymore. There's no point of holding on to that sense of curiosity or that sense of peace or pride that you previously have held. And also there's no real vulnerability, and thus no real truth. And that which you hold, if it is too rigid, too rugged, and too intense. So if you've already boxed yourself in, you have to understand that all of this is probably going to be broken. If you are right now, by the end of 2020, having very, very rigid or very, very extreme ideas of views, if you have a very, very strong person that you have become, or your personality is very, very intense, and you have a very strong drive, try to diminish any kind of angles, simply because Oxia is already kind of out to get us. It's already out to package us and repackage what we do and what we know, and it wants to get us all very excited for each other. So it does like the idea of us being marketable to each other and being understood by each other, and also being collaborative with one another, but plus also to sell what we've got, and to become, how can I say, famed or placed or associated with other beings. I mean, on a commercial sense, it is true, and also on the personal, private, and even psychic and spiritual sense, it is true. It is about combining things and combining them with ease and practicality. So that's kind of like what you've got to look forward to. But the way that I'm seeing is that if you have a very boxed in perspective of yourself, or any other being, any other person in your life right now, that box has got to go, simply as it's not going to be able to afford the transformation that you need in order to become available to impact yourself and other people well during an ox year. So why this year sometimes comes to term as a very, very exciting time for Virgo is simply because it'll show you the way out, and also the way through a certain type of business, maybe. or it'll show you a certain type of idea that you can make into money, or it'll kind of like show you how to make no mistake in what you do. So it's a very efficient, practical, and also at the same time poised energy. So it doesn't really have that rigidity of, like, say, a dragon year. It doesn't really have that intensity of a tiger year. But what it does give, though, in the same regard, is a holy center, or that really strong physical working energy. But the way that I'm kind of like also seeing this year right now is that it's a little bit like sort of like working class. So like ox energy is kind of a little bit round of the mill, and it has that perspective of things being common ground and common use, and sometimes also the most holiest, the most epic, the most jolly, or the most essential ideas you have can be shaven down, or can be repackaged into the most common theme or common use. So like, for example, you could be an aspiring artist, and for some reason throughout this year you might have a lot of bumps on the road, and a lot of ways in which your ego gets crushed or raised by surprise. Completely previously unforeseen ideas and circumstances start to beam, but what happens at the end is that you have produced something that is ultra spiritual for you, and for another person it's just like a label on a bottle, or just something that they hang over their toilet seat. So it's very important, okay, not to get too excited and extroverted about this type of time, simply because yes, it does provide a guru state for you. It will help you get yourself heard. It will make you into a more feasible and a more like recognized being. It could take your business through the roof. It can make you more interested and more requited, interesting and more requited by the people. But at the same time, it might also not serve you that which you want to get. So for example, you idealize yourself as a fine artist, and then at the end of the year you might be just making labels or brands, and that has got to be an okay feeling, because an ox energy will wash out some of you, and will start to create a best of the best feeling of something that you're doing or have always wanted to do. So it's kind of like a portfolio type of energy, but it is so rude sometimes, and it's so practical that it's going to make it for the mainstream market. So like when I'm seeing you, and you might be so intense about your job, your place in the world, you might have very intense value system, a very, very crucial feeling, crucial belief in a certain spirituality. I also trust that sort of energy, that sort of deliberate essence that you might be vibrating could also be an ending in a way. Because if you are really, really strong about a career, if you're very, very strong about your choices, if you're very, very crude and very simplified, and you have a certain type of cause and effect, and you're really controlled, just understand that you're putting a lot of effort into holding things together that at the end of the day might be very mainstream and common sense, and they probably won't have that enigma or that mystery or that mastery that all of this energy suggests. So anything that you're very epic about, anything that you're very intense about, anything that you are intimidated by, all of the stuff that you really, really like to think about, like to know at the moment, could at the end be washed out into a very, very potentially submissive or just a very crude dream. So the main thing that I'm sort of like saying is just don't worry about it. Try to let go, especially if you have anything or anybody surface now as the end-all be-all experience, or if you've got any big commitments, or if you are trying to lay back what you've been, lay down what you've done, and try to do something else. So any kind of awkward need to dominate all will inevitably become a submissive energy. So like anything that you also might truly helplessly believe by the end of 2020 might be something that could contribute to a demise of ego, or that might debilitate you and what you've been. So for example, if you really, really trust in God, and you have a really, really strong perspective on what God is, or who God is even, I think there's going to be a beginning of a demise. So it's very possible by August, different A, seeing images, by August you might not actually find yourself there. You indeed might cause some trouble for yourself instead. So the way that you are with other people, the way that you are with another person, with anybody, with creation, anything, has got to be a little bit more mellowed out, because sometimes there's a unity within you that is not appropriate. So there could be a need to fight for something and somebody, you know, this need for intensity, this need to really give your all, when you're actually confusing yourself, and you could be going towards a certain type of submissive state or demise. Socially, spiritually, romantically, emotionally, financially, it could be something that you're really standing up for, and try to make sure that you are not letting yourself walk between other people also, and pushing their buttons, because it's also like the more buttons you push now, the more likely is going to be the push from life. So there needs to be a mellowing out and a softening if you can afford it. And also by Jan, you should probably already believe in what you have as a given, and just make no Christ out of anything. Does it make sense? Like, make nothing big out of anything. So no matter what you have, a nice career, a new partner, anything, just make sure that you don't make it into a whole lot more than it could really ever fully be, as you need growth. Ox will grow things, you know, so all this is good. It's good, right? It's a good reason to be jolly. Ox will grow things, and the reason why you also don't want to have things too rigid, too big, too emotional, and too powerful right now is simply because you want to keep things small and subtle in order to let them have that space for the growth that they truly need, and not to have things too abrupt. And also, I trust that a lot of the things that sometimes when we begin Ox, we really need, really have our eye on, sometimes they fade out first, the soonest. So all of those exotic seeds and exotic ideas sometimes are the ones that become incapable of being later on. So I believe it's very important for us not to have that energy of the edge, and to conserve energy actually, and not to pull anything apart, and not to think too hard. So by the end of March, you might have a little bit to do if you have so many big, high and mighty ideas and feelings and cravings and creativities. If you have anything too tall, too strong, too emotional, too deep, too colorful, too flavorful, by the end of March it can already become a little bit of a purpose and a bit of a burden, and there could be a few ironies already kicking in. So it's like, sure, you think you want to do this thing, well, you know, do you have the finances to do it? Or, okay, you think you're so big, okay, do you think you can handle this? It's like, no. It's like, well, why don't you just admit that you're small? No, because I'm big. Okay, well, you have to handle this then. So there's a very interesting addition of pressure, or addition of stress, time and worry spent doing maybe potentially for some people thousands of things, if you cannot just enjoy the simple things. And also let things be of hope. Let things be of hope. If you don't really know how you're going to conclude something, if you don't know how you're going to finish something, if you don't know how you're going to bring out the next version of your dream, if you're not quite sure, just let the simple things be the guide for you right now. And also allow March to shake away or simplify or destroy, wash away some of that which you think is real, just simply because you've got to let go of your life, like let go of that grip, in order to be able to be in greater states of perfection later on in time. And also not knowing is better than before. So right now not knowing things is absolutely fine, and it's not that dark, it's not that finite. If you don't know how you're going to put something together, if you don't know who that person is, if you're not quite sure how to take care of yourself or how to market your brand, it really never mattered. So by March, it's going to maybe even dissolve. So you're now worried about somebody in your life, they could be gone by March. Or like you're so worried about how you're going to put things across, or how things are going to sit or stand, or what they mean, or who you are. And then sometimes the things that you worry about the most get taken from you, or they just become absolutely somebody else's dream, or they're just no longer part of your purpose. So try to dilute as much of that anger or that need for management as possible, simply because it is the perfect time now to let things go and allow that simplicity of Ox and lack of exoticism to some degree take space. And also by May, April, we don't really have what we did. So what we had before, sometimes, you know, it's very hard to swallow for a lot of Virgos if you had a big commitment. So for example, you started to plan a business with your significant other, you've made a website, you've started, you know, creating flyers, you wanted the world, you've had this huge, maybe even domineering, almost like a Martian imagine interest in something or somebody, and you had this huge world view, and then come May you guys divorce or break up and the brand is gone. So like that's the thing that sometimes happens. I've had this happen to me as well a couple of times in my life, you know, when I had through grit teeth, you know, that feeling in me was nothing but that dream, or in me was nothing but that person, and then at the end of it, it just goes its own way, and sometimes it only takes a month for it to completely fall apart, when before you thought it would be the only vision in your life. So let yourself have space for that. Don't control anything. If you're going to bring anything out, if you're really birthing something into the world, if you're really making an opportunity, if you're really taking advantage, if you really want to, you know, to do that thing, try to wait till about April just to see what falls down, and then continues to evolve or completely dissolve by, even by the end of the cycle. You know, just wait, because sometimes things either will become more and more self-assured and self-connected through many other people, many other lives. Please watch out for that when a collective supports an idea, because it is good. So like, for example, just an example, last few years, we had to really do it by ourselves, you know, had to create a brand, a label, we had to picture it, package it, you know, do all the stuff, promote it, you know, like find an Instagram app that will help us, you know, manifest more viewers, whatever, you know, like we had to do all that stuff. And now you see it's not gonna be like that. So now it's more like word of mouth. Okay, you make a great soap, someone use it, someone love it, they show their friends love it, they get more soap. So it's more like a country living, okay, ox, country living, simple style. Jupiter, Saturn for Aquarius, okay, simple. And also word of mouth and popular demand. If you don't get called back, don't try to knock on the door. So sometimes Virgo wants to do it all themselves, and they want to like spruce it all up and clean it up and make it the best and make it perfect. Try not to be that annoying to yourself. If you can, just like allow the word of mouth and the natural kind of loftiness take hold. Oh wow, like this girl, you know, she can really do this thing. Wow, that's the best chiropractor I've ever had. Wow, look at this. Like everybody will go through what you're doing on a level and weed out what they want and what they don't, you know. So like some people would just be like at your party where you are trying to turn people into like worshippers or like followers or something, and you might still think in the Instagram terms, for example, making connections, you know, connecting to people, and then suddenly they say, hey, I heard that you play like really good cello. It's like, no, I only played like, I don't know, like I don't really play anymore. No, you play a really good cello. A friend of mine told me you play really good cello. And I have like a friend who wants to like hire a session musician, doesn't matter. So basically people dig in your garden of life and they sometimes pick out not what you want. So not what you expected. What you think you're seen for is not what you're seen for. And there is no mistake. So it feels to me that you've got to let that loftiness take care of you and let the word of mouth and the grapevine teach you a few things, because you might not know what you are and who you are and what you are experiencing, or what truly are you selling, or what is your dream, what is your appeal, what's your mission with other people, specifically Aquarian age here. But the way that other people are going to place you and the way that they're going to stick your life together is going to be probably on a completely different level. So let other people do what kind of you didn't expect them to do. You know, let other people pick you out of the mass. You know, let other people present to you what they believe or they trust you present to them. Like, allow it. And by August, it is really truly a miraculous time, because I'm feeling June, July is going to be lots of parties and lots of wisdom sharing for a few people. By August, you might have a very good picture and a very nice brand, or just a very stupidly easy thing to do, based on who you always probably were to other people, but that has to be without that clutching feeling, without that control. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm the boss, you know, like I make this thing, like I'm gonna do this, and they're not seeing you this way. So for example, you think you're an artist, but they think you're an incredible coach, life coach, and you're saying, no, buy my art, look, I'm trying to market my art. Don't market the art. People are coming to you for a different reason. So there's lots of us getting refurbished and repackaged and reinvented by another person's eye, and you got to just let it be of hope. So don't clench. You know, so like you might be already noticing that your previous business or your previous adventure, your previous state of self or state of mind is no longer needed. So you don't have to, you know, play that old drum. You know, you don't have to make that same kombucha, you know, and sell it at the local market, you know, because people might have a completely different taste for who you are. You know, you don't have to bring back anything from the past. You don't have to feel out what it could be artificially. It's just basically in the knowing that somehow other ones, other people, other brands, other people, other employers, other concepts of other people are going to help you evolve, and also another person might be able to do your job. Let them. You know, like sometimes the Virgo will fight for the right to work. Why not just party? You know, fight for your right to party. And just fight nothing. Just party. You know, just party. Just go out and enjoy. And also, I think there's going to be much more given to your worth if you are actually free and available to live the dream, to step into the right place at the right time, to see adventure for what it is, and not to concern yourself so much with getting things correctly. You know, if you are an unusual person that is very alone and has chosen to be alone for any reason, same, you know, so instead of like, say, watching endless documentaries or trying to understand what God is, just have fun, like chat to someone online, just be pleased, make lots of friends online. If you are debilitated completely and you cannot let go, like say you actually physically cannot leave the house for any reason, it's really good to just enjoy yourself anyway and create a certain type of social circle around you. And then by the end of April, May, you already kind of see why you have held on to something or somebody in your life so much, or why you couldn't see anything beyond a certain reason or beyond a certain structure or belief, and who you are now. So that's already starting to evolve probably for some people as we go through 2020 already. At the end of 2021, you might not be as excited as you could be, but you should be. You know, sometimes excitement, you know, here at the end is really, really true as we get in tune with you. But by September's end, you probably already kind of see why you cannot afford previous ways of life. So all that stuff you could have been fighting for in 2020, 2021's beginning, you could already be losing, and other things are coming in instead, or other people are coming in instead of you. You might also be replaced. Don't fight it. You are not needed somewhere. Please don't fight it, okay? And by November, you might have a very, very exciting career or a new proposition from life. It's just more important not to give yourself away at the drop of the hat either. You know, when you understand that all of this disillusionment and debunking was in order for, you know, to get you into a state of better creation, don't lose your time here. So the main thing basically is, no matter what holds you at the end of the year, no matter who gives you that next proposition, what life leaves for you, what skills, what crayons you have to draw with, to paint life with, you don't really have to work so hard here. I think that the next evolution of Virgo is very light working and more like hard opening, you know, hard opening. And it also feels to me that not many of us really want you to do anything else but a very simple thing and get very good money for it. And nobody really wants you to work so hard anymore. Like, nobody really wants you to be in so much control anymore. And everybody's almost like zonked out when you give so much of yourself. So the most powerful thing I believe that you're going to start to become by the end of March 2022. It's so hard to cut the year, like, you know, in a Gregorian sequence for me, but okay. By the end of March 2022, you might not really even care that you started something that you would have to give up in 2021, that you made all this business with people that were not supporting you, or that you tried so much to market a brand that was futile. It is not going to matter based on the reasons that are going to be presented to you by the end of the year. So it's going to be very large sums of money, very large career choices, very large gifts that are going to be coming to you by the end, you know, of the oxen year. that you might not get your head around right now. But if you knew how much was coming, and if you knew how much life and growth and happiness and light was provided to you by the end of all of this, you wouldn't sweat the small stuff. So don't sweat it, Virgo. If it comes apart, let it come away, and if it comes together, let it stay. Thank you very much. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.